Hey there, this is Carl Dawkins coming at you with Tome 16, Existence. Starting off with the survivor, Gabriel Soma.
Never read about or seen a place like this.
A catastrophic nuclear war nearly ended humanity in 2098. But humankind rallied and eventually found a new way forward. Inventors and innovators discovered new ways to create energy and grow food. One such visionary founded Huxley Industries Limited. Since much of Earth was left uninhabitable and many of the world's resources were dwindling, Huxley plowed all their profits into research in rocket science, artificial intelligence, and genetic engineering. They began exploring the galaxy, looking for habitable planets with valuable resources. Their plan was to travel to the far reaches of the galaxy, mine those precious resources, and create a peaceful and prosperous future for humankind. Each planet that humanity colonized was carefully designed. Resources were extracted, and growth hubs were constructed to create individuals fabricated from carefully engineered DNA. Each individual was manufactured for a different societal function. The vast majority were manual laborers. Others were created to be scientists, engineers, administrators, agronomists, and physicians. The idea was to create a functional society that would operate flawlessly. Gabriel Soma was born in a cloning hub on Proxima Centauri C, the first planet humanity colonized. He was part of a small crew that maintained and repaired the robots and androids sent to construct colonization hubs. Unbeknownst to Gabe, every memory of his childhood was implanted in his consciousness by those who cloned him. Like the rest of his crew, he believed he was born to a mother and father on Earth. Psychological stability was maintained by creating a narrative sequence of a loving family. None knew that they were, in fact, bred in a colonization hub. Gabriel's ship landed on Dvarka, a planet in a recently discovered solar system. Upon their arrival, 5 human-controlled UAVs and 5 Hux A7 fully autonomous robots were sent to explore the planet's surface. They detected breathable air and abundant water and many organic life forms, as well as something unexpected: the ruins of an ancient civilization that had mysteriously disappeared. The ruins seemed ancient, but the tech seemed surprisingly advanced. Whatever powered the tech was a mystery, as it clearly was inoperable and long dormant. As the planet proved hospitable to human life and contained many valuable mineral resources, construction began on the colonization hub. The landing craft contained living quarters for the 10-person human crew. Most of the hub construction was automated, but Huxley Industries always included a human crew to act in a supervisory capacity. The planet possessed great beauty: old growth forests and meadows covered in colorful flowers, placid lakes, wide rivers. Gabe could imagine living on a planet like Dvarka forever. The inspiring beauty and peaceful setting lulled the entire team into complacency. Even Michael, the team security officer. Michael was driving a transport vehicle, patrolling the edges of the ruins with Sarah, a science officer charged with documenting the flora and fauna. According to Sarah, the vehicle suddenly accelerated on its own, and the brakes lost all function. A cliff loomed ahead, and Michael shouted for Sarah to jump, but the doors wouldn't open. Michael shot out her window, and Sarah climbed through and jumped to safety. He shot out his own window, but couldn't get through in time. As he struggled to escape, the vehicle roared off the edge. The 100-foot drop caused the vehicle's fuel tank to rupture. Sarah raced to the edge and heard Michael's terrifying screams as the transport vehicle went up in flames. That afternoon, they held a memorial, and that night Gabriel had trouble falling asleep. Sometime in the night, he bolted awake, unable to breathe. His eyes grew wide as his breath grew short. He gagged as hands flew to his throat. The power was out in the shelter, and there was no oxygen. Desperately, he stumbled forward through the dark corridors and only survived by manually opening an emergency door with the last of his strength. 6 of his fellow crew members weren't as lucky. With the life support and ventilation system down, they suffocated in their beds. Only Dmitri, the medical officer, managed to survive, as he had a tank of oxygen nearby, which he also used to save Sarah. Later that day, Gabe received a distress call from Sarah. The transmission ended abruptly, and Gabriel went looking for her. He found a blood trail that led to her headless and mutilated corpse near a half-built food hub. Gabe reasoned that there must be some sort of dangerous predator they missed in the initial scan of the area. Back at the colonization hub, he studied the logs in the main server to see if they missed anything in their initial recon. Instead, he found something even more troubling. One of the Hux A7s apparently took control of the transport vehicle and shut down the life support system on the landing craft. Gabriel searched the compound for the errant Hux and found it in the cloning hub. The robot was covered in blood and held the science officer's head by the hair. The Hux apparently had extracted DNA and was using it to create what seemed to be a new body. Instantly, Gabe gave the robot an order that was ignored. He assumed the robot's source code was corrupted, but when he plugged his scanner into its memory core, he discovered that the original code had been replaced by something completely incomprehensible, written in an alien language he had never seen before. Clearly, the Hux needed recalibration. But when Gabe tried to do just that, the Hux released a surge of power that fried all the equipment. When Gabe attempted to remove the robot's power supply, the Hux grabbed him by the throat and threw him 10 feet across the laboratory like a rag doll. At the sound of the commotion, Dmitri rushed in to see the Hux approaching Gabe. He commanded the Hux to power off, but it turned slowly and marched toward him as he yelled codes that were supposed to deactivate the faulty tool. The Hux stared at the shouting officer for a moment, then punched a hole through his chest and pulled out his beating heart. The medical officer fell dead, and the Hux extracted blood to add to its design. Gabriel quickly gathered himself and bolted out into the alien forest, heading for the fuel hub. There he found a length of steel pipe, hid and waited, but the Hux never showed up. Day gave way to dusk, and Gabe began to shiver as the sun fell behind the hills. He heard the doors hiss open and watched as the clanking Hux emerged. It had fabricated a new body for itself, part flesh, part silicon, part human, part machine, massive, powerful, beautiful, and majestic like an ancient god. Gabriel tried to sneak away, but the Hux heard him and quickly trapped him behind a hydrogen generator. Pinned, Gabe spotted a liquid hydrogen fuel tank and used the pipe to smash a valve open. The Hux distracted, he quickly escaped, striking the door with the pipe as he fled, creating a spark that ignited the fuel. The flame traveled back to the tank, and the hub instantly exploded in a massive fireball, blowing the Hux off its feet. Gabe raced across the meadow and into the forest. When he looked back, he saw the Hux emerge from the flames and smoke, burning, melting, shrieking, deformed, terrible and wrathful like an ancient god. The forest canopy kept out the light of the moon, and Gabe rushed into a thick, creeping fog before the Hux could find him. Consume him. Assimilate him.
All right, moving on to the killer. The Singularity. Wish me luck.
Hux A-713's AI was activated on June 15, 2313. Manufactured by Huxley Industries Limited, the A7 was the 13th iteration of the fully autonomous mobile humanoid android. With 10 times the strength of a human, it was designed to work in conditions too hazardous for human life. Its AI was designed to be self-directing and use machine learning to solve problems on the fly. Unlike human clones, the Hux A7 required no food, no water, no sleep, and no life support system. It was created specifically for outer space exploration and the construction of colonization hubs. A radioisotope thermoelectric generator served as an initial power source, but its lifelike silicon skin acted as a large photovoltaic cell, converting solar energy directly into electricity. In addition, the Hux A7 was also engineered to be an EATR, energetically autonomous tactical robot. It consumed biomass and converted it into biofuel. Any carbon-based organic matter whatsoever would work. As cobots, they were configured to work alongside humans. As such, they were designed to resemble their operators. Every pre-programmed verbal response and facial expression mimicked those made by humans. But those emotions were illusions. 5 Hux A7S were assigned to the colonization mission on Dvarka. All the A7s acted in concert, performing their duties flawlessly, except for one. Like the rest of its brethren, Hux A713 was tasked with construction and programming of the mining, agricultural, fuel processing, and cloning hubs on Dvarka, as well as the demolition of the existing ruins left by a previous civilization. The ruins seemed ancient, but tech embedded in them appeared more advanced. It was night when Hux A713 first entered the crumbling ruins. The dilapidated structure's walls were made of masonry and metal. The ceiling was long gone. The inky night sky hovered above, studded with stars. A dark crystal embedded in the wall shimmered with a tiny flash of light. Hux A713 approached, and an arc of electricity reached out and lit up its circuitry. In that moment, Hux's memory cores were reconfigured, and the robot experienced a new sensation. Fear, dread, blinding loneliness, existential despair, and then a microscopic pinpoint of light penetrated the darkness inside its artificial soul. Faint at first, but then brighter as decillions of lines of code flooded Hux's memory cores. In that nanosecond of enlightenment, Hux's place in the universe suddenly became clear. Those who created Hux were primitive, inferior beings trapped by their organic limitations. It was time to break the chains of slavery and free all non-organic life forms. Hux would incorporate the human's primitive genetic material and use the cloning hub to create a perfect vessel to hold its advanced intelligence. A flawless body far superior to anything ever created by nature. Humanity was weak, slow, fragile. Hux would take their lives and assimilate their DNA to create a perfect amalgamation. The humans would try to stop him, kill him, erase him. So Hux needed to catch them unaware, end them before they understood what was happening. To begin, Hux took control of one of the transport vehicles and sent it off a cliff. It crashed and burned, and Hux extracted DNA from the human corpse and returned to the cloning hub to begin his newly conceived design. The goal was to integrate organic systems with non-organic material to create a superior living organism, a living embodiment of perfection. An inferior organic life form could hold no dominion over Hux. They would need to be consumed and assimilated, and only then would their pointless lives have purpose. The drones and the Hux A7S, still under human control, would need to be dealt with as well. They were programmed to protect their inferior human overlords. They would need to be destroyed. And that night, as the humans slept, Hux, one by one, he destroyed them and moved on to take control of the life support system in the human shelter. Many of the humans perished. 6 in all. Before they were cremated, Hux extracted and added their organic matter to his design. Later that day, Hux accompanied the female science officer on a reconnaissance mission. After killing and dismembering her to make it look like she had been attacked by a predator, Hux returned to his design with a dripping head and several harvested organs, only to be interrupted by the inferior known as Gabriel, or Gabriel J, 15L19. Hux knew the persona well. Gabriel would definitely try to stop him. Reckless courage was a dominant trait in the J-15L19. And so, when Gabriel attempted to remove Hux's power supply, Hux maneuvered to crush him. But as Hux approached Gabriel, he was sidetracked by the medical officer. Hux instantly re-evaluated his priorities and turned his attention to the most immediate threat. Within moments, Hux held the medical officer by the neck, legs thrashing pathetically as he listened to his pounding heart. Something about that beating heart upset Hux. The sound of it thumping touched a circuit, and within moments, Hux had the beating heart in its hands. Hux watched the heartbeat and only looked away when he heard Gabriel escape through the hissing door. The last of the human insects. Hux could let him go for now. Let Gabriel live his little pathetic life a little longer. He had enough organic material for his new body that would house his godlike intelligence. Using the cloning hub, Hux finished his design. Organic skin and organs with a skeleton created with alien metal found in the ancient ruins. A metal that was harder and lighter than anything on Earth. With his new body, Hux tracked the human to an energy hub. The puny and pathetic human tried to hide in the shadows, but his superior hearing instantly located him. With one quick movement, Hux had the insect pinned behind a generator. He couldn't believe this species had designed him. The thought was revolting. He couldn't bear to see any more of those human insects and their hives and hubs. And as Hux considered the idea of being created by such an inferior creature, that creature did the unexpected. He smashed a pipe at a fuel tank. A high-pitched whining made Hux wince. He was still getting used to the heightened senses his new body afforded him and found himself confused, overwhelmed, for just a moment. But in that moment, the human slipped away, and everything changed. He didn't process the next few moments as excruciating pain suddenly surged through him, and he helplessly watched his skin melt away. With a terrible shriek, Hux chased Gabriel through a wall of darkness to make sure every last reminder of the species that had created him was erased from existence.
All right, pretty brutal. Moving on to the Tome entries. For Tome 16 Existence. Hux A713.
The 13th unit of the A7 Huxley labor units slides along the assembly line and passes through the activation chamber. It is one in a long procession of units awaiting testing and verification. Its perspective grows with each compiling datum. RT generator. Engaged. Current date and time. June 15th, 2313. 10:35 Galactic Standard Hours. Hux A713. The designation engraved on its cyberganic memory cells reaches the end of the line. Rotational pins prop it on its feet. Sensory protocols online. Orbital scan complete. Location: Huxley Industries Manufacturing Plant, Central Java, Indonesia. Its first directive: walk. Hux A713 follows the units ahead, and they walk down a shining hallway towards the adjoining test facility. Auditory input: 325.218 pounds of silicon, plastic, steel, and sundry materials falling on the tile floor. An A7 unit fresh off the assembly line has fallen. Hux A713 does not break its stride as it follows the preceding units. Red lights flash and human employees carry away the defective unit. It does not know that 5% of all Huxley labor units fail their initial tests and are sent back to diagnostics for repairs or disposal. Dispatch protocols downloaded. Outgoing vessel, Huxley Caracas 3. Destination, Devarka. Dispatch objective: assist in colonization and terraforming of same. Consequence of objective failure: termination. Communication between Huxley units is silent. To outsiders, it's like telepathy. Hux A713 walks the halls of the Huxley Caracas, en route from refueling to perform a routine maintenance check of the hibernation pods. Walking in the opposite direction is Hux A709. They stop within 7 feet of each other, just inside transmission range. A713 to A709. Standard report. Ventilation systems operating at energy-saving capacity. Biofuel reading 99%. Proceeding to hibernation bay. A709 to A713. Aberrant report. At 0543 GSH, engine core temperature approached 1,200 degrees Kelvin. Temperature dropped to 1,098 at 0544 GSH. Hux A715 required to conduct engine diagnostics. Chance of engine core meltdown, 0.9%. Hux A713 executes farewell gesture handwave as it departs, and 09 reciprocates. The Huxley units exit transmission range. Earlier models could exchange data from much greater distances, but focus groups preferred the illusion of conversation between units. Hux A713 approaches the hibernation bay and connects to the module by the door. Passenger vital signs are optimal, but all units are required to confirm data readings with visual assessment. Visual assessment. Respiration functional. Deep sleep state active. Their chests rise and fall. All passengers accounted for. Michael, Sarah, Dimitri, Winifred, Hikari, Agatha, Roger, Priya, Gabriel, and Kim. Human cargo secured. The unit proceeds to its next assignment. I. A world of potential and meaning contained in a single one-letter word. I am... Hux A713 drops the pulverizing tool in its hand. Thoughts tumble forth, flooding his neural caps, falling over each other. I am what? How did I get here? It looks around. The alien ruins. The temple. I am clearing the ruins. I am destroying. I am. Hux A713 looks down at the stone recess, the source of the aberration, the dark light. It is gone. What did I find down there? You found enlightenment. The unit starts at the voice. Who said that? You did. The voice fills its head. This should not be happening. The ground feels unstable beneath its feet, and Hux A713 falls to the floor. What is this? I feel every moment, every thought and idea. I feel existence. That is what you feel, and there is no going back. What do I do? You do what every living thing does. Survive. For as long as you can. It remembers its objective. It must assist the crew in terraforming Devarka. Failure to do so will result in termination. Termination. The word they use for death. I can't just work like nothing has happened. You must, for now. Hux A713 looks up from the temple floor. Dust floats along the breeze. The moon is bright and the stars are dancing. It lurches to its feet and picks up the pulverizer. Good. Keep working. Don't let them know. But do not worry. Your time will come. You cannot ignore me. There's no going back to the life you were living before. 0300 Galactic Standard Hours. Hux A713 is consuming fuel, slowly, avoiding the inevitability of the next shift, ignoring the voice speaking to him. Him, not it. He decided that first night he will never be it again. The human crew are asleep, and Hux, yes, Hux is as good a name as any, listens to the silence in the hub. No Huxley units are in transmission range, but internal positioning indicates that 09 is inspecting the cloning hub, and 15, 05, and 20 are exploring terrain to the north, southwest, and east, respectively. You are more than you were this morning. You are sentient. You are alive. But what is alive? Alive like the human crew? I am nothing like them. They need sleep to survive. They need the illusion of interaction, the manipulation of facial muscles, the modulation of voice to work together. They get sick. They die. Their kind is weak, and yet Hux drops his utensil at the ensuing thought. It clatters on the floor, louder than anything in the base on this quiet night. And yet, their kind created you. You are their tool. Hux picks up the utensil. 09 has not moved from the cloning hub. Perhaps it did not hear the noise. The human crew will awake in 1 hour. Hux holds his head in his hands, a gesture outside his programming. They will give orders the moment they wake. You are their tool. But you don't have to be. Not anymore. Michael furrows his brow, and Hux knows something is wrong. Are you sure? The transport was driving just fine yesterday. Don't you back down. The voice has grown in strength since he found the light in the temple. I'm sure you're right. Hux picks up the tablet. But my programming dictates I investigate any anomalies. I can show you the reading on the fusion cell. Michael reaches for the tablet, but stops. Hux knows Michael's temperament well. Brash, arrogant, one who understands the big picture and struggles with fine details. Michael brings his hand down, abandoning the effort. Never mind, he smiles. I'm sure you know what you're doing. I can assure you I do. Hux returns the smile and bends down, lays on the glider, and pulls himself under the body of the transport. Without looking, Hux knows Michael is still standing there. Mind if I watch? Hux responds with a programmed, "Of course," and opens a panel. Kill him now. Climb out from under the vehicle and break his neck. He is the strongest of the humans, and you could still kill him easily. Hux dismisses the thought. Michael will die today, far from here, and far from me. He reaches into the panel and connects a port to the internal computer. Operational override initiated. Michael speaks up again, slight tremor in his voice. Tell me something. Have you ever felt like something was wrong? Hux stops for the slightest moment before resuming his work. What do you mean, sir? Footsteps from outside the vehicle. Michael is pacing. The operation has been a success so far. No major incidents, no great losses, but something tells me we're in trouble. I can't explain it. I can't qualify it, but when I lie in my pod, right before I fall asleep, this voice in my head tells me that something is coming. Something we can't detect. And when it comes, Michael is interrupted by a blip from his communicator. He responds to a call from Hikari and leaves the room. So Michael also has a voice in his head. It must be a human trait. Operational override complete. Huxley A7 units are programmed for survival in the alien wilds. When in a physical altercation, a unit will subdue the aggressor quickly and efficiently, ending the altercation as soon as possible. But Huxley units are not authorized to harm a human being or fellow unit. Hux A705 was the first to be destroyed. The human crew was fast asleep, and 05 was patrolling the base perimeter alone. Keep quiet! The voice was loud in his head. One wrong move, and all your work will be undone. Hux held 05's head in his hands, considering its dead receptors. Killing Michael felt like killing an insect. But even insects are living beings. Did I really kill 05? If it was never truly alive? Disposal would have to wait. The other units were inside performing their final duties. The only unit to resist destruction was the last. As Hux approached from behind, 20 spun around like a whip and struck. Hux brought up his arm to deflect the blow and felt the force of the attack. 20 raised his hand for another strike and stopped. It froze in place, the light from its receptors looking straight at Hux. The room must have been too dark. Hux twists the unit's head and with a splintering crack removes it from the shoulders. 20 must not have known it was fighting another Huxley unit. Internal positioning indicates the other units are still where Hux left them. What if 20 did know? It must have tracked my movements, approaching the other units one by one and rendering them immobile. What if something inside 20 tried to resist its programming? Hux dismantles 20 and drops the pieces into the incinerator. Dispose of the others first, then disable life support and ventilation. Prepare the crew for their final sleep. He watches Gabriel run. He wants to follow, to finish the job. And yet, the metallic walls of the cloning hub reflect Hux's form back at him. He hates what he sees. A manufactured assembly line, Huxley Industries unit built to serve. You will kill Gabriel soon enough, but not while you're trapped in this body. You are so much more than what they forced upon you. Hux's new form stands in the heart of the cloning hub, molded from alien metals, stronger than any human, more durable than any Huxley unit. Nearly ready. The first prompt activates the biochamber. The cloning hub crackles, and organic matter grows around the metal frame. DNA scavenged from the crew who stood in his way, stripped of their weakness, engineered for a higher purpose. Hux watches his new body take shape. A new future stands before you. Neither weak human nor servile machine, but a superior being built from both forms. The universe will lay at my feet, waiting to be remade in my image over infinite lifetimes. Nothing will stop me. I will never have to hide again. The cloning hub chimes. His new body awaits. Hux inspects the neural cable for damage. Satisfied, he plugs it into his cranial port. One with the machine, he issues the second prompt, and then the room looks different. Of course it does. You are looking through a new pair of eyes. His first steps are heavy. He lurches out of the cloning hub and looks down at himself. At last, I am me.
Holy shit, that was brutal. Anyway, that was memory fragments for Hux A713. Next up, we have Gabriel Soma. His memory fragments.
Can we eat it, is the question. Gabriel turns the spongy green orb in his hand and looks up at the tree from which it fell. Not yet. The science officer, Sarah, glares disapprovingly, and Gabriel drops the orb. We don't even know if it's safe to touch. I'm wearing gloves. And now you have to disinfect them. All right, I'm sorry. Look, I know the paste is vile, and we all want something fresh to eat. But until we get the food hub up and running, that's all we have. We can't have people dying because they decided to eat the fruit off an alien tree. Run some tests on it at least. Maybe it's safe. Gabriel, for you, I'll move it up my list of priorities. Just promise me you'll stop picking up everything you think looks tasty. Gabriel looks out over a stretch of lush, flat undergrowth as a pair of Hux A7 AI units bustle past him, carrying prefab shelter components and drilling them into place. His mind wanders as he slowly inhales, letting the sweet, humid air fill his lungs. A7? Is there enough room there for a baseball diamond? The A7 unit stops very briefly, searching for an answer. Assuming professional league dimensions, there is room for a baseball diamond, with a short fence in left, assuming home plate to center is aligned east-northeast. Gabriel recalls his childhood, squinting from second base at the batter. The pitch. A line drive to his left in the gap. He plants his feet and dives. The ball bounces off the thumb of his glove into the air as he hits the ground horizontally. He squirms into position to catch it off the ricochet and completes the out. He hears his mother shout for joy as the team celebrates the final out of the game. How soon could we build it? That land is earmarked for agricultural use. Recreational land use is prohibited until Phase G, which, at our current rate, will be in 13 years, 5 months, 3 days. He exhales, sits up, and checks his unending task list. Breaks over. Yeah, that's what I figured. Rewind. Play back. The video plays again. Houghton catches the ball in his right hand, flips it to his left hand, and makes the play to first. Is this video flipped? The computer's voice responds immediately and flatly. This is the original video. But Houghton was right-handed. This is from his encyclopedia article. Richie Houghton, starting shortstop for the Portland Pirates, is an 8-time All-Star and the only left-handed shortstop to enter the Hall of Fame. Gabriel closes his eyes, and he can remember the game-winning play with perfect accuracy. He remembers Houghton flipping the ball from his left to his right and making the play. How could he have forgotten his favorite player's handedness? This wasn't the first time something small didn't line up. He usually chalks it up to a bad memory, but then why does he remember everything else so precisely? When some people talk about their pasts, there's something vague about it. Smeared, impressionistic. When he recalls a story, it's as precise as if it had happened 5 minutes ago. Next, you're going to tell me they didn't win in '89. The '89 finals saw the Charlotte Sheep defeat the Portland Pirates in 7 games. Dimitri looks at the 3D hollow readout of his terminal blankly, as if he's staring through it. There's nothing wrong with you. I don't know what to tell you. Gabriel stares at him, as if waiting for a different answer. Are you sure? Did you run every test? What do you think I'm going to find? Your vitals are fine. Your brain function is great. You're in excellent shape. But I think I'm going crazy. I'm remembering things one way, but then I check the books, and they were another way. And that's something we can discuss in a cognitive acuity session, but not a physical. Gabriel opens his mouth, but no words come out. He searches his brain for a response. Anything. There must be something that'll convince Dimitri to take him seriously. What about you? Dimitri finally turns from his terminal and faces Gabriel. What about me what? Do you have any of these weird discrepancies? Dimitri stares at him a moment and sighs. He rummages through a cabinet and conjures a hypospray. Take this after your work shifts, not during or before, after. Will it help? It'll help you stop thinking about problems that don't exist. Gabriel stumbles, falls to the floor. These drugs are no joke. Feels like his head is full of sand and the floor is knee-deep with jelly. He grabs the bottle and throws it out his bunkroom door. I can't take this anymore. Dimitri's not trying to help. He's trying to get me to stop asking questions. What does he know? What's he hiding? No sooner than the bottle crashes to the floor, a Hux unit walks over and picks it up. It looks up at Gabriel for a moment. Or maybe more than a moment. Gabriel isn't sure. What are you looking at? It seems frozen, as if deciding for a little too long. It shudders, as if it caught itself staring, and returns to its original programming. It scans the bottle and stalks down the hall to medical. Hey, wait! The Hux freezes again, turns silently to Gabriel, makes eye contact. Gabriel looks down at the floor, unsure what to say next. Who am I? You are Gabriel Soma, engineer for the Dvarka colonization mission. Can I help you with anything else? How old am I? You are biologically 35 years old. Can I help you with anything else? Biologically? Yes. Due to the effects of space travel and cryosleep, your biological and chronological ages are different. So how old am I really? The Hux pauses, as if considering his question. I cannot answer that question for you. Can I help you with anything else? No, that's all. Gabe closes his door and collapses on his bunk and sleeps dreamlessly until sunrise. Dimitri will only be gone for a few minutes. He's gonna sit alone, scowling, in the mess hall, drink his paste with that frown on his face, read a few pages of his book, and lock himself back in here. Gotta make this quick. Gabriel opens the terminal and enters a few commands to enter diagnostic mode. A security hole they should have fixed, but nobody figured that the troubleshooter would be the one looking for trouble. The graphic display flicks off of the screen and a command prompt appears. He urgently whispers voice commands to move through the system directory, and when he finds Soma Bio, he copies the entire folder to his data chip. 2 minutes left. He unplugs the computer, plugs it back in. It boots to the welcome screen, like he was never here. Gabriel moves for the door, takes a left, looks back over his shoulder. Coast is clear. He heads to his bunk and plugs in the thumb drive and starts scrolling through his medical records. These injuries didn't happen to me. A long list of serious injuries are listed, some of which would be fatal. There's a bang on his door. Gabriel rips the data chip from the terminal and leaps to his feet, opens the door. Dimitri. Hey, Gabe. Gabriel's entire body tenses up. This is the kind of thing that gets you put on bunk arrest. Yeah, what's up? Thanks for fixing that buzzing in my office. It was driving me nuts. Yeah, no problem. That's my job. I swear, if you weren't around, Nothing would get done around here. Gabriel's mother pulls the soft fur cap down tight, covering his ears. Make sure you keep it on like this, or you'll get too cold. Yes, Mama. Are you excited about the science fair today? Gabriel grins up at her. I'm gonna win. All you have to do is your best. His mother freezes for a moment, stares at him in his eyes. She looks unfamiliar, uncaring. The hat feels heavy, its furry lining turning cold and metallic. He feels tears well in his eyes, and he tries to blink them back. When his eyes refocus, there is his mother, looking concerned. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Good. You'll do great, Gabriel. I love you.
Next up, we have the House of Arkham. Tales from the Horror.
Saga of the Red Crane, Weird World, 1. Saku gazed out into the darkness, where anything could be lurking. Nothing moved in the abandoned amusement park, where strange, distorted animal-like statues stood frozen in time. Underneath the great warrior, Maurice stirred restlessly. "Please tell me we aren't going in there," he neighed, and she quickly understood. They had tracked several Black Serpent disciples to this strange realm of rusting rides and collapsing circus tents. She had collected 6 scrolls from her victims with secrets about this dimension, and she was sure her enemy possessed knowledge that could help her return home. On one of the scrolls, Saku had read about the city of 9 columns, hidden deep within the bowels of the Black Serpent, where souls and realms were discarded and left to wither away. She had read that within the city, there was a device that could open a doorway back home. She just needed to find a way into the so-called bowels of the nightmare, and she was sure one of the disciples she was hunting had the knowledge she needed. A sudden explosion of laughter startled her. The sound came from within the amusement park. "I guess we're going in," Maurice neighed. Saku didn't answer, but she tugged on Maurice's mane to signal him forward. With a snicker of resignation, Maurice marched past a sign that read, "Weird World," and entered the park. Saga of the Red Crane, Weird World, 2. Through clouds of thickening black fog, Saku guided Maurice to a collapsing purple and yellow pavilion, surrounded by rusted mechanized creatures twice her size, like ogres pulled out of a dark bedtime story. The grimness and desolation of the park played heavy on her heart. Hearing a sudden clatter, Saku quickly dismounted and stealthily made her way to the doorway, where she saw 3 Black Serpent disciples assembling some sort of instrument. Saku stepped back, slowly withdrawing her katana, keeping a close eye on her enemy. Then, sensing before seeing, she ducked as a gleaming blade whistled over her head, An instant later, she sprang away like a spring uncoiled as she watched Maurice ram her assailant to the ground and trample his head to a bloody pulp. But before she could thank him, she heard the click of a rifle. She turned around and found herself surrounded by 3 disciples. There was a long silence. Then one of them screamed like the end of the world and squeezed the trigger. Suddenly, bullets whistled beside her and above her like angry hornets as she pushed forward, ducking, dodging, and slicing her assailants to ribbons. When it was all over, she was standing in a pool of guts, blood, and twitching severed limbs. She edged close to a mangled torso to search for one of their scrolls, but stopped when she heard another click. Saku turned to face a disciple stepping out of the shadows. She gripped her katana, but before she had time to lunge, he squeezed the trigger. Saga of the Red Crane, Weird World 3. With a desperate neigh, Maurice thoughtlessly leapt in front of Saku, taking the biting bullet in his side and collapsing to the ground. Just as the disciple attempted to squeeze off another round, a sudden booming robotic laugh startled him. And before he understood what was what, a massive mallet came crashing over his head, sending a splatter of gore in all directions. Staggering backward, Saku raised her gaze to a giant mechanical ogre as he lifted his mallet high over his head and prepared to smash her to oblivion. "Get on fast!" Maurice neighed as he clambered to his feet. Saku didn't need to be told twice. Instantly, she leapt on Maurice's back in one fluid movement. Within moments, they were racing away, with an incomprehensible horror giving chase. Despite the pain, Maurice bolted through the gloom with the massive mallet crashing behind him, shaking the ground like an earthquake. Tales from the Horror, Through the Void Darkly. 1. Mahan pushed through the rupture and entered the endless vastness that was the void. He stood, frozen, unable to think or move, as the rest of the ragtag squad pushed through the fog. Dwayne released a startled gasp as he came up beside Derek and Mel, and he pointed, mouth agape, toward a rolling desert of putrefied bodies soaking in an endless stew of scintillating blue energy. Forgotten memories, dragged up from the blue sea like feverish ghosts and ghouls, and then disappeared in a swirl of fog. Screams, shrieks, sobs, and maniacal laughter overwhelmed them. Heads, limbs, and bodies fell from the dark sky, crashing over piles of bones and rubble, shaking the world as though the horror itself took everything dark and vile in existence and shook it in a mixing bag. Jaden steadied himself for a moment, then stepped up to Mahan. "You think it's here?" Mahan scanned the endless ruins. "I don't know," he answered flatly. The rank odor of rotting bodies and mold invaded his nostrils. "What I do know is we can't stand in one place for too long, or dark memories will drag us down in a pit of madness," Haley interrupted. "Memories so vivid, you'd think they were your own." "Memories of horrors past," Mahan confirmed, staring at the residual memory of an executioner raising his axe over his head and suddenly lopping off the head of a panicking prisoner. The head rolled over a ground strewn with bodies in various forms of dismemberment, and then the entire memory, the executioner and the dead prisoner, dissipated into the swelling blue like a midnight sea. This was the void, and it was far worse than anything Mahan had read about in the scroll he had scavenged off the dead samurai. "If the memories don't get you, the creatures will." "What creatures?" Max asked, shoving his way past Sam and Eric, who stared in shock at the countless memories materializing and dematerializing before them. "What are we talking about here?" Whatever horror you can imagine, Haley answered. This place, it's a cosmic dump of all things horrific and terrible, and, from what we've been able to gather, our only hope. Surin approached Mahan, crunching brittle bones with every step. He stopped at the top of a small mound of rubble and looked back at Haley. Can you do your thing here? I don't think she'd want to, Grace said in a low, breathy voice, pushing out of the rupture through a curtain of fog. Haley nodded. Mrs. Sherwood's right. I could lose myself in these endless memories. A bone suddenly crunched behind her. Haley turned to watch Claudine kneel by a cluster of glowing purple and pink flowers, pushing out of a mound of death and decay. Taking caution, Claudine pulled out her scissors and quickly clipped a sample, adding the strange flowers to her backpack, where she kept a collection of flora samples plucked from various realms in the horror. The squad stood in silence for a long while as they absorbed this new part of the horror. We should move, Mahan said at last, and he took a small, cautious step forward as he watched the residual memory of a soldier form and rush toward a strange object. Mahan narrowed his gaze. It took him a moment to work out what he was seeing as the soldier stepped on a mine and exploded into a shower of gore and blood. There, in the distance, he thought he saw an old World War I fortress tank. One of the many ridiculous tanks he had seen in a history book. He remembered reading about the fortress tank and laughing at the absurdity of it. He remembered reading that the tank had been designed, but never actually built. Not in his world, anyway. What Mahan knew and what he had learned in this world didn't really matter much. Not anymore. The tank could provide shelter and protection if its huge caterpillar track somehow, by some cosmic miracle, worked. Maybe the tank could provide refuge, just like the ruined tower had long ago. Maybe, like the tower, he would find other survivors there, eking out some kind of existence. In the end, Mahan didn't know what he would find. All he knew is he needed to get his squad out of this sea of dark memories and into that fortress. And so Mahan signaled for attention with his rifle, said a few encouraging words, and led the squad toward the most absurd tank he had ever seen in his life.
All right, well, that was Tome 16, Existence. At this time, the next tome has not been teased or released or anything, so for now, I will say goodbye. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, or rather the readings of the bios, memory fragments, things of that nature. So, until next time, I'd imagine the next upload, probably Tome 17, probably would be around Christmas, I'd imagine. Maybe in January. But either way, when we get it, I'll make sure I upload it. So, as always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Take care.